March the 17th, 2026. Guys, you're looking at a letter. This came, I think it was yesterday, from Joseph Kent. Now, he's not, you don't see him a lot on TV, but he's the director, or was until yesterday, the director of national intelligence at the National Counterterrorism Center. And he's writing this to Trump. The reason I'm going to read it to you is because it could be a game changer in the war in Iran. And because politicians have one thing in common on both sides, is the fact that the public, if they get the information, and also if you get to look at it from a different perspective, the politicians I'm talking about, that often will influence their decisions. Not always, but the public opinion really does matter. Unless you're a Democrat, I don't think they care. But anyway, Joseph Kent wrote this to Trump. And let's read it because it makes about as much sense as anything I've heard. And again, it could mentally influence Trump's decision to get this thing over with. And if Benjamin Netanyahu, if he's even still alive, wants to continue, then let him, that's up to him. But let's read this because no matter what I say, I'm not going to beat what Joseph Kent said. President Trump, after much reflection, I have decided to resign from my position as director of the National Counterterrorism Center, effective today. I cannot, in good conscience, support the ongoing war in Iran. Iran posed no imminent threat to our nation, and it is clear that we started this war due to pressure from Israel and its powerful American lobby. Now, we know who Lindsey Graham is and a few others, right? And some that are not necessarily in politics. You can have not, anyway, like he said, American lobby, and that includes a full array of people. He said, I support the values and the foreign policies that you campaigned on in 2016, 2020, 2024, which you enacted in your first term. Until June of 2025, you understood that the wars in the Middle East were a trap that robbed America of the precious lives of our patriots and depleted the wealth and prosperity of our nation. In your first administration, you understood better than any modern president how to decisively apply military power without getting us drawn into a never-ending war. You demonstrated this by killing Salami and by defeating ISIS. Early in this administration, high-ranking Israeli officials and influential members of the American media, and again your war pigs, deployed a misinformation campaign. Now, this is the director of national intelligence. They deployed a misinformation campaign that wholly undermined your American First platform and showed pro-war sentiments to encourage a war with Iran. This echo chamber was used to deceive you into believing that Iran posed an imminent threat to the U.S. and that you should strike now. There was a clear path to a swift victory. That's what they kept telling Trump, because a lot of it had to do with, in Trump's mind, with how quickly they got in and out of taking out that nuclear underground facility a few months before the war started. Anyway, they're saying that they convinced him it was a clear path to a swift victory. This was a lie and is the same tactic the Israelis used to draw us into the disastrous Iraq war that cost our nation the lives of thousands of our best men and women. We cannot make this mistake again. As a veteran who deployed 11 times and as a gold star husband who lost my beloved wife Shannon in a war manufactured by Israel, I cannot support sending the next generation off to fight and die in a war that serves no benefit to the American people nor justifies the cost of American lives. I pray that you reflect upon what we're doing in Iran and who we are doing it for. The time for bold action is now. You can reverse course and chart a new path for our nation, or you can allow us to slip further toward decline and chaos. You hold the cards. He continues, he said, it was an honor to serve in your administration and to serve our great nation. Joseph Kent, Director of National Counterterrorism Center. Again, politicians are influenced by public opinion, guys. So I want you to share this video if you would. And the more people that read it and think about it, again, that public opinion will spread, which is highly influential on anybody with good sense that are in politics, which are few and far between these days. Anyway, guys, we got that going on today. The Senate, they're dragging their feet pretty big time. But today starts the process of getting the Save America Act voted on. I don't know if it's going to pass or not. We got so many rhinos, it's pathetic. And so that's in process now. I watched a few minutes of when it started this morning about 9, and the Honorable John Thune, who makes me sick, came on and gave a stupid speech for about 10 or 20 minutes, opening up the thing. And then they scanned it forward, and so for about another 45 minutes, they sat around and they're doing nothing. And that's where they're dragging their feet. And he talked about more of the, funding for the TSA and for Homeland Security and all of that, as much as he did the Save America Act. But somehow that's got to be the main focus right now. Again, Mr. President, do what you got to do. And let me say this. I did a video a few months back, and it showed that John Thune and Mike Johnson had been involved in some money that was supposed to be from voters, but it was political scams. They were running that, the same thing the Democrats were doing. They were setting up hundreds of people that the people didn't even know they were involved with, using their Social Security information and all, and donating money to Thune and Johnson. What did they call it? I can't remember the exact name. They had terminology for it. But it was illegal campaign contribution. Thune and Johnson's caught up in it. So if I were Trump, I'd call them in private and say, I'm fixing to bust you wide open. You get this thing done. So what they're looking at now, and it may start today, and I'm not going to cover it live. I'm going to wait and see what happens, and then that way we come back and edit out all the blank spaces. But I'm looking at it because it's the most important vote in the history of our nation. If you don't realize that, sorry for you. But of course, Democrats are going to say that's not true. But it is. And anybody that's against voter ID is, they are here to cheat, Republican or Democrat. That's the only reason you would do it. You want to cheat the vote. You know you got enough illegals in here to try to win the upcoming midterms and then the 2028 elections. But if Thune and them let us down on this, guys, something will have to be done. I'm not sure what will happen, but somebody's got to step into this, and it's up to our president. And it would be good for him to, again, Israel, if this letter is true, and it's true, I mean, it's a documented letter, and if Joseph Kent, he sounded very patriotic. And if anybody would have influence on President Trump, it would be somebody like this, especially when it's exposed publicly, his comments and his resignation. It could be a powerful impact. So we got to get the SAVE Act done, guys, and I'm going to pay attention to it. And again, if it's not a slow crawl, watching paint dry, then I may get some of the clips up at least, or go in there and delay it slightly so we can skip the dead points. But everyone does need to focus on this. I know they're pretty boring. Believe me, I've probably done more live streams on C-SPAN in the last year than anybody other than them. But it's boring, I realize it, guys. This has to be brought into public attention for the same reason this letter does. And Trump, I'm sure he has a copy of it, and he's considering what to do now. But, they talk about in end times, these spirits going forward to the kings of the earth to bring them to a war. And I don't doubt it in Israel, and I don't doubt it with the war pigs here in the U.S. I'm hoping that spirit group that were released is not inside our president right now. And I'm being honest. And, you may call me crazy, but I'm hoping that he was simply influenced by people that are demonically possessed, that are doing what they're doing out of Israel. People, they don't want you to talk about Israel. Why? Because it was embedded long ago that you had to support Israel. And, they never embedded it in me. I've got enough problems here. And that's just straight up, I'm all American. I'm for American. I'm an American taxpayer. But I'm not for Israel. I never will be, especially under the conditions of Benjamin Netanyahu. I'm not talking about the Israeli people, but under their government, I think there's some mighty powerful spiritual infections going on there, and other countries around the world. Europe is probably totally infested, and so I'm hoping that we can get rid of that here. And I guess the only thing would be, talk to our Father and say, Father, you got to step in on this. But when it usually gets so bad that he has to step in, it may not be what we want. Noah, if it wasn't for Noah, it would have been nothing left the last time he decided to step in. And the reason he had to do it like that was because it was such a worldwide infestation of the Nephilim and the evil spirits and people that create war. Will that be what the Gog and Magog war is all about? I don't know. But a little thought this morning, guys. I appreciate you taking the time to read this. Again, please share it out and watch for updates. And you keep your eyes also open. C-SPAN and the votes coming in on that SAVE Act. And share information with us. Anyway, guys, it's a heads up. Be safe.